joining our webinar today. My name is Sue and I'm a product manager at Medit. Today, we'll discuss unlocking the potential of digital designs for everyday dentistry with our new webinar speaker, Dr. Nejad. Briefly introducing him, Dr. Nejad is an expert biomimetic and aesthetic dentist practicing in Beverly Hills, California. As a fellow of the Academy of Biomimetic Dentistry, he is responsible for mentoring and training dentists, and he provides education and training in biomimetic dentistry through the Nejad Institute for Biomimetic Dentistry. And with Medit, he will show how he uses Medit design applications clinically in everyday workflows in a variety of cases. Doctor, it's such a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Thank you. So today you're gonna speak about how to use the Medit design apps, right?
Yeah, I've been using digital technology for many years now, but it wasn't until I started using Medit that I was able to really unlock all these features. So I'm really excited to share how all the different tools and apps have helped me really maximize the potential of digital dentistry and 3D printing.
All right. Before I started, I just wanted to briefly mention that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our online platform or YouTube channel, Medit Academy, shortly after it ends. And there will be a Q&A session following Dr. Matt's presentation. And as this webinar has been pre-recorded, so we've already received the questions via email in advance. And in case we're unable to answer all your questions today, we'll send the replies to your email address as soon as possible. You can also send an email to medit.edu@medit.com if you have any questions or feedback. All right, Doctor, could we start now?
Yes, I'm very excited to start this. So let's get going. I'm going to be sharing how you can unlock the potential of digital dentistry and using digital designs for everyday dentistry as I've been using it in my practice and learning all the different various ways. So we're going to be covering specifically how to utilize the Medit Design app, which is a very powerful app, and I'm really excited to share that with you. We're going to go through the Medit Design app and what it is and kind of give you an overview of the different functions the app can do. And then I'm going to share 3 different cases that I've done recently in my clinic that kind of really show the different applications that this app can allow you to use in doing digital dentistry. And there's a lot more applications, but these are just some of the various examples that I've been using. So starting with the design app. And so I think I've been sharing it a lot, even on social media, and people are interested because they didn't realize how powerful it is. It really is something along the lines of an exocad design suite where you can do a lot of different things. You can use this for everything from measuring things and finding, how close you are on your design versus your final restorations and measuring points. But you can also do a bunch of design things like simple digital wax ups. You can do digital extractions, which I've been using a lot for cases when I need to have a Essex or a bridge made before an extraction. I can do cool stuff with that. You can do implant provisionals with this, or at least create shell provisionals, and that's been a real time saver for me, and it's really helped the workflow for implants. Also, you can do all sorts of custom solutions, whatever it is. If you need to come up with something, like I just saw recently, people are making Coist appliances using this, or you can use the Medit Splint app. But essentially, the design app gives you all the tools to do a variety of these things and a whole lot more. So when you want to use Medit Design app, you start by going into, you finish your case and you can open it up with the icon here, Medit Design. Make sure you have the most up-to-date version. Any projects you have previously will be right over there, and you can pick from one of those or start a new one. So here we have a case where I was doing a digital extraction. You can see all my different 3D objects along the side here. With a little practice, you can see how you can either make all of them, translucent at the same time, control their opacity, or you can do one by one. You can even make certain layers invisible. Then you have alignment mode, deviation display mode, where you can look at the deviation between different scans, curvature display mode. Now the three that I'm using the most are transformation mode, measurement mode, and then edit mode. These three give you a lot of different tools to do a variety of things that we're going to share. Like for example, in the edit mode, you can make selections, make deletions, you can mirror different objects, you can clone parts. So really just a whole lot of different things you can do. And I'm going to show you how I do that. So let's start with case number one. This case, it's on my one of my staff members. She lost her crown. She was really concerned about getting a big infection or something. She didn't even know she had a root canal on it, but I essentially took a look and I was like, okay, well, one, you need a root canal because it's been exposed. It doesn't, it looks mushy under there. But also I thought, instead of doing a wax up or having something to provisionalize with, maybe I can be prepared for when she returns from endo to have a provisional. And this was one of the first times that I was really applying all the different tools that Medit Design has. So here's my initial situation, not much to provisionalize based off. And if you know about 3D printing provisionals, you know that at the moment, by the time you get to the end of your procedure, if you're going to print it, it's going to take some time. And I think right now, 3D printed provisionals are awesome for multiple units. For one unit, I much prefer to either have a shell made or to just use a standard silicone index. So I wanted to be prepared for that. Okay, so for starters, you want to get this into the Medit Design app. So I'm going to press this icon here, and then you have the option to make a selection of whatever you want to bring in. So I'm just bringing the mandibular scan in. And first thing I do is click the edit mode. In the edit mode, I'm going to select tooth number 19 here and delete it. If you don't delete it, sometimes you have problems when you try to do steps further in the process, but sometimes now I don't have those problems either. But I think when you have the opportunity, deleting it is usually the smoother process. Now you can take tooth number 30. The general idea here is I'm going to use number 30 as my wax up, but I'm going to mirror it. So first I press the duplicate tool, then the single select, and I just expanded my selection just a little bit so I have a little extra to work with. And then you're going to press the check mark and you have a duplicate of tooth number 30. Now what you can do is, I like to rename things to stay organized. That gets more and more important as the scans get, as the layers get more and more. Now I use the mirror tool to create a mirror, and I'm deleting the initial number 30, and I'm going to call this my number 19. Now you just need to refine this a little. I mean, you don't have to refine too much, but it's actually kind of fun and it doesn't take much time. So first I'm closing the contact using the bridge tool. Both sides, I'm just kind of closing this off so I have a full shell. It's a lot easier to close holes this way. And then I press fill holes. And if it has any trouble filling holes, I'll just cut out the area. Sometimes a little cutout here, delete, and then fill hole again makes things go much smoother and it actually looks better too. So we do that, and now I'm going to smoothen. So I'm using the sculpting tool, which has, add, remove, smooth, and I'm using smooth. And now I'm also using the morph tool where you can drag things and extend them. I just want it to be long enough for the cutout area. Really easy to use this when you get the hang of it. I'm going to show you some other examples. I think when you're doing this, you have to make sure you don't get frustrated because it's a learning process, and I've seen how much better it gets when you get good at it with practice. Using a little bit of smoothing, sometimes I'm adding a little bit there and then I'm just smoothing it out. I think in total you'll spend about like 5 minutes here if you really want to improve the anatomy, but if you just want to stick with what it has, you can do it even faster. In this case, I had time, so I'm even adding in some anatomy on the occlusal. So I'm using the add tool, and because the patient wasn't having the same appointment, I was able to do this. And interestingly, I'm doing this on my laptop from home, which is one of the things I really love about the Medit software, Medit link, that you can use it on a Mac and that you can also easily work from home, because I like doing these things from home as opposed to in the office. So that makes me more likely to spend time on it when I have the opportunity. Here I'm removing a little bit so that I can basically add some grooves, and then I'm going to use the smooth tool to make them less intense. Important to remember, you can do as much or as little of this as you want, but with practice you'll get good at it, and I think it's worth using every now and then. Now the problem is we have this tooth and it's not in the right place. So you use the transform tool, which was that other tool at the top, or the mode. So you see I'm selected on that on the top, and I'm using this to position the tooth where I want it. So you can rotate, you can even scale things. So right now I'm rotating and positioning, trying to get this aligned in the occlusal plane. And you can also scale both uniformly or in one direction. But once you have it positioned where you want, all you have to do is combine this. So you're doing a Boolean union where it's combining those two layers. Now I have my final number 19 digital design model. This model now has a tooth number 19 there, and I can save that. I can export the file, and I can print this, and I can make a standard silicone matrix to make a provisional. So that is one way that this has really given me the opportunity to do really cool things, because traditionally I would either send that out for a wax up or have my in-house technician do a wax up, but those are time-consuming things that I think are better suited for this workflow. And I even have an assistant now who's been learning these things. So she's able to really take these on. And plus she finds it really fun to do these things. I think you need to know how to do it yourself, and then you can teach your assistant how to do that. Now, in the case that you want to take it further, you can actually take this into Medit temporaries. So let's say you want to print a shell with this. Now you have a design. My goal was to have a model so that I can do a standard silicone putty and make a provisional, but then I thought, why not also have a 3D printed shell? I'm not pressed for time. I can have it prepared before the appointment. So I took this. Now I have this, design model here, and I took this and I decided to take it into the Medit temporary app now. So that's this app right here, and I'm gonna select the option to use pre-op data, but I'm gonna tell it that this design that I had was my pre-op, okay? And I select the tooth, and then what we're gonna do is go through and select the area. I'm doing the shell mode to make a provisional here, so I'm kind of selecting the margin line. You can go a little bit further than the tooth so that your shell has room to be relined. But you can also do it precisely like this and then use a tool to expand, shrink or expand right there on the bottom of the screen. So that's kind of what I did right there. I find a little more expansion than this is actually nice because it makes it easier to do the reline. So here's our provisional or temporary shell created, and I did the thin margin selection. The blue areas are about 0.5 millimeters, so you can try to add to them. So here I am adding. It's taking a little bit of anatomy away, but that's okay. I'd rather have a nice strong shell before relining. And then you can still sculpt here. So if you see opportunity, you can go ahead and sculpt. And there's a step at the end where it's going to adapt to the antagonist, where it's basically going to remove any interferences or intersections. So you can kind of add conservatively here and hope that when you select that, you don't end up losing your anatomy. So now we have much less thin areas, and I'm just taking a look at things, and then I'm going to do this adapt to antagonist, and now we can click finish, and now I actually have a 3D printable shell that I can use for this situation. So in this case, I had both things ready, and I was able to use that shell. So that's something I want to do more of. But I think as a routine, like I'll show you other cases, in a routine situation where I'm pressed for time, I would rather just print the model in a fast print setting and do a standard provisional unless I have a multiple unit situation where I feel like it would save me time. So when I'm printing these shells, I'm using Onyx Tough with my Sprint Ray printer. Onyx Tough is a really nice material. It has a lot of ceramic filler in it, and it only has one shade at the moment that is kind of on the whiter side. That's the downside, but it's really strong and people are using it for interim restorations. So I went ahead and I printed this shell ahead of time. And so what I have ready for the appointment is the model as my backup in this case, and the provisional shell, which I thought I would reline. And it's important to note that my normal routine would be to use a pre-op silicone matrix, but now with all these technologies, when I see the opportunity, we're trying to get scans ahead of time and prepare for these situations, because I much prefer this rather than trying to improvise and make a provisional during the procedure. Saves us a lot of time, makes the procedure run smoother. So I plan on doing a whole lot more of these provisional shells like this. So during her appointment, she got her root canal ahead of time. She came back. And I removed any remaining material, did a buildup. I do biomimetic dentistry. So that's the type of adhesive dentistry that doesn't rely on retention. It's adhesive retention. And so even with very limited tooth structure like this, I'm very confident in the long-term success and durability of these types of restorations. And then for the provisional, I relined that shell. And when I did that, all I had to do was trim and just a little bit of stain and glaze. I've actually gotten even better at staining and glazing these now. You can put several different coats of like a shade on there to really bring the value down. It's actually quite impressive how much you can do. But for a posterior tooth, I don't think that's important. And this had really nice margins, and it's a really nice polish and finish, or a really nice glazed finish, I should say. So that's one example. Now I want to share a little bit more difficult example because it's in the aesthetic zone. So this time we have a case, and this one really put the pressure on. So literally that previous case and a few after that made me able to get prepared to do this type of thing more routinely when I need to do it fast and efficiently. So in this case, the patient told us that he had his veneer come out. It wasn't a restoration that I had done, and he wanted it re-cemented before his daughter's bar mitzvah. So, I said, okay, let's re-cement it and we can worry about changing things. But turns out when he arrived that it was broken into several pieces. There was no way, it was incomplete. There's really no way to re-cement that, but I only had enough time for basically a re-cement, about an hour maximum. And for me, I need a little more time the way I work. So that made it very stressful, especially not having a pre-op situation. So what I decided after thinking about it for a sec is let's try to clone the other side. So I did a scan, and that only takes 1 or 2 minutes. My assistants are doing this now and they're getting really efficient with this. And then I said, let's do the design during the appointment. So while he's waiting there, so after the scan, we put topical on, I went in to numb him, let it kick in, but I went and I quickly did the design with my goal to have a design made before we start the procedure. So here I am in design, and I brought in his upper and lower this time so I can evaluate occlusion. And I like to duplicate whatever I'm working on just in case so I don't have to reopen. So I'm going to edit mode and I'm using the duplicated maxilla, and very similar process. So we're going to clone. So you press that duplicate button over there, then you select the tooth you want. So I'm going to pick number 6, and you can again refine the selection as needed, but this did a pretty good job. But I want to try to do it as a veneer. There's another way you can do it though. You could leave it like this and erase it later. So different workflows, I'm still figuring out which one would be my favorite, but right now I just said let's take it as a veneer and bring it over. So I just kind of erased some of this selection area over there, and then you press the check mark. And what that does is now you have a duplicate of that selected area. I like to rename that, so I'm going to call that one number 6, duplicate. So now I can hide everything, and this is what I have. Now we want to have a mirror image of that. So we're going to use the mirroring tool right down there with the little arrow and the two triangles. And you pick what you're going to mirror, okay? It's not what's showing on the screen, it's whatever you pick. So I'm going to pick that, move it over, press the check mark. So now I have like this mirrored area, and I'm just going to go ahead and delete this because I don't need it. You can also just delete the layer. That's another way to do it because it created two different objects when it does that. Now this is number 11 design or clone or whatever you want to call it. So now I'm going to work on that. And again, we got to get it into the right position, right? So that's where you go into the transformation mode at the top over there, right? So you click transformation mode. You pick the tooth, that's what you want to transform, and we can move it into position. And as I've done this more, I've also learned some cool tips and tricks here. So never really thought of looking for occlusion, but I'll show you now that when you bring in the opposing and you look through the bottom, you can actually see that. But first you want to get it close. I have a little too much gap in the gingival area. So I do this, but it looks like it's a little too lingual now. And I'm pretty sure that's going to have an occlusal problem. So that's probably not the right choice. I probably need to bring it out and tip it a little bit like this. And then I can get it positioned nicely. And then finally take a look at my occlusion. So you see that intersection over there. So I can kind of fine tune it and just peek through the opposing and get an idea. And it's okay, I don't mind adjusting a little bit on something like this. You don't want to spend too much time if it needs to be done during the procedure. The whole thing took me about 10 minutes during his appointment, and I was able to finish the whole appointment on time. So now you go into edit mode, and what you want to do is make this fit better onto the existing prep or whatever is left. So morph tool is what I want to use. And you can also do this with the duplicated maxilla still present, but I just wanted to get a little bit of extension there. So I'm just kind of peeking at it. And then it's just, as long as you're selecting the tooth, you're not going to do anything to the maxilla, which is really cool. It's pretty intelligent because it knows that you don't want to do that. And so here I'm just dragging it over the margins, closing the proximal contact and embrasures really. You can use the add tool. So I'm sculpting more and using the add tool to add a little bit more volume there. You can go back to the morph tool. So I'm kind of jumping back there and just kind of over contouring it a little. And then finally, you can do the smooth tool, and you can use keyboards for all these. When you get the hang of them, it's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you start to get the hang of doing these shortcuts, and it really speeds things up. So here I have the design, looks good, but again, it's not connected as one piece. So this time I didn't delete the tooth, but I can actually merge the two together using the same tool. So it's the Boolean union. So I'm going to press Boolean union. I'm going to pick both of those and give it a second, and it's going to create my final printable model. And so now I go back to the appointment and my assistant's printing this, and I'm able to know that I'll have a silicone putty by the end of the appointment that I can use to provisionalize. So this is the final model for 3D printing. We use the fastest speed my printer has. It's called ludicrous mode, and it prints them really fast. So between everything, it was less than an hour between printing, washing, and curing, and making the provisional. So I was able to get it done during the appointment. Meanwhile, I just cleaned up the prep, and one of the things I do is called immediate dentin sealing. If you haven't heard of it, that's one of the key things that improves adhesion, minimizes fracture of ceramic and complications. It's again something that is part of biomimetic dentistry and something I teach in my courses. So I finished that, I took my final scan, and just when I was ready to provisionalize, the putty was ready. So my assistant made the putty. I've been working with her for a while to make a variety of different silicone putties. So that's really nice to be able to delegate things like that. So now I have the provisional, and I'm filling it with Luxatemp, no, actually Visalis, which is a very strong PMMA. This patient's known for breaking other restorations, so I want something nice and strong. And So I fill it, I put it in, I Vaseline the tooth ahead of time, okay? Because I did immediate dentin sealing, if you don't Vaseline, you'll get adhesion, and that will not be pretty on cementation day. But you Vaseline to create a separation, you place the material in there, and then you can remove the excess and stain and glaze intraorally in one go. So here I'm just applying a little bit of cervical stain, a little bit of glaze, nothing too fancy here. It's only going to be for a short time. And I can give that a final cure so it's got a nice appearance. And again, the shade that I used for that was a bleach shade. So I'm able to tone it down if I need to using a little bit of a shade. Then on cementation appointment, I use rubber dam and I'm using heated composite. So a patient returns. I actually tried in the restoration and unfortunately the shade was off. But I've been doing more and more stain and glaze both on provisionals and on ceramic. So I was able to actually correct it myself and get a really nice result here. So I had to, it was too high value. I had to add some additional A shade. I used Luster Paste 1 from GC, and I think I got a really nice result. Patient was very happy with it. He would have accepted the higher value too, but I just felt we needed to do our best to give it a nice result. So from those cases, let's just stay on this for a second. From those cases, you can see some of the cool applications with Medit design, and that's just really the tip of the iceberg. Now I'm starting to do simple designs. Like, I guess my goal is not to do any more wax ups. For the longest time, I've been doing digital designs for complex cases like 10 or more teeth. I use an app for that and I do really nice complex designs, but we were still doing wax ups for the single posteriors or smaller cases. And now I'm trying to do things with the Medit Design app so that we can completely eliminate wax up or really minimize it, because it'll save us time. It gives us more flexibility. It's a good record. So take a look at this case. This patient wants to treat number 8 and 9. For a couple of reasons. It's a little hard to see from this photo, but it has a yellowish tint right down that craze line. It was sealed over with resin that discolored previously, but also she said her previous dentist kept shaving it down and she doesn't like how short it is, and she wants to keep the identity of her own teeth. And that's kind of a really challenging thing, I think, but there's a really great way to do that, which is to actually literally clone their own teeth and stretch it out and just refine it. So that's what I did. With the same steps we've already covered, I brought it into Medit Design app. I duplicated the 2 teeth. I transformed to make them longer. And then I added just a little bit of volume in the cervical. And I was able to get a design where we're adding just that little bit of length. She didn't expect too much. She knew that we really can't add too much length or we're going to have a awkward contour or situation, but to her it was important to get that. So we do that, I show it to her, but even better is to see it in the mouth with that mock-up procedure. So I 3D print this and we do a mock-up. So I have a silicone putty made from that printed model, and we do the mock-up again using a PMMA. This time, again, it's Visalis and it's the bleach light shade to kind of compensate for that yellowish tint. And you wait till it hardens up, remove the excess, and you can still see some of that yellowish tint showing through. It's extremely thin. This is a no prep mock-up. It's just to evaluate and get her approval on the shape. So she looks at it, and this was actually the second mock-up. The first one was a little bit too long. We actually went just a hair shorter, and she really liked this and gave her approval. So now we're going to use that for our final design. So with these few different cases, I'm just kind of sharing all the different things I'm using Medit Design app, and it's a project that's in the works. I'm still making more and more applications for these things as I discover the potential and I learn how to harness it. So I hope if you're not already doing these things that you're able to learn something from this lecture and really understand the power of these different utilities. I'm very grateful that Medit's given us those tools and I'm using them all the time for increasingly more difficult tasks. Okay, that's it.
All right, thank you for the presentation, Doctor. Then can we move on to the Q&A session?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. The first question is, what kind of prosthesis can we make with Medit design? Does it include implants or orthosectors as well?
Okay, that's a good question. So think of Medit design as a real powerful workhorse. It can do temporaries and designs, but it's better whenever possible to use something like Medit temporary or Medit splint to do things with like a nice workflow. But Medit design gives you the power to do lots of things. So like, for example, in one of the cases I did recently, I made an implant provisional, and I made a opening for where the screw access would be, and I estimated things. And you can do all types of prosthesis, from an implant provisional to a surgical guide. You can make you can literally design wax ups or even like veneers with it. But in general, Medit design has all these powerful tools, but some of the other apps give you like a more streamlined workflow to doing that. So whenever possible, you try to use those other apps, but then when you need to do things that can't be accomplished with those other apps, Medit design has the tools you need to do all sorts of things like that. One of the really cool cases I did recently was I did a digital extraction of teeth and made some Pontics that you can either use as a Maryland bridge or as a Pontic to put in an Essex tray. So it can do these more complex things, but like I said, whenever possible, try to use one of the other apps so you have a very streamlined process.
All right, thank you. And can we go to the next question? All right, question number 2. What are the advantages of using the Medit design app compared to the exocad or 3Shape?
Okay, so I've seen 3Shape used a little bit. I don't have too much experience, but I know enough to kind of make the comparison, and I have a lot of experience with exocad. So advantages of Medit design, one, and it's a big advantage, is it's very powerful and it comes for free at the moment. So it comes with the Medit Link software. So you have this really powerful tool that you can use at no charge. And that's just a huge advantage for so many people that are trying to get into these things. I also think, honestly, that the workflow and the interface is better than exocad. exocad has a lot of advanced tools, but it's more, I find Medit design to be more intuitive, but it looks so simple sometimes that you underestimate its power. So I would say in whole, Medit design is very powerful, very capable, and it can do a lot of what you would traditionally do with exocad. But the biggest advantage is it gives you some sort of tool or utility to start getting into design right away, and you can figure out where you need to take it. And then the best part is it keeps improving with time. So if you think you're going to outgrow it, oftentimes you'll find that there's new additions that keep making it more and more powerful. And another thing I was going to say about Medit design is it's very, very good at aligning things. So like I had a case recently where I wanted to align the preps, the pre-op, the temporaries in the mouth. It can do incredible alignment with automatic alignment, better than I've seen any other software do so far.
Oh, do you really think so?
Really, honestly, yeah, no, seriously, because I even have some of my friends that are exocad users, and I showed them how well it does it, and they were impressed. Because with exocad, you know, like I said, I use exocad sometimes too, and you have to align with points or you have to select areas, but the automatic alignment that Medit design can do, I was able to, you know, I'm going to share this probably in one of our next webinars, but I want to show how amazing it is to keep, like, from beginning to end, all your different scans for a patient in the right orientation. So you kind of have like layer by layer by layer, and it's just the best to do it. It's the cleanest, it's the simplest, it looks the nicest, and it's also the easiest to share. You know, another huge advantage of Medit is you can have it on every computer in your office, you can have it on your laptop, you can work on it from home. And that translates to, if I want to share it with the patient, if I want to look at it from home, so much more convenient than the restrictions you have with the other softwares with their licenses, one computer. So like, I really find myself using it more and more just because of convenience and the power that it has.
Thank you for the answering, because we've got a lot of this kind of questions from our users.
Yeah, no, it looks, until you start experimenting with it, you might think it's not as powerful, but when you start to see it can do everything from transform, copy, duplicate, the things I showed in the webinar, you can start really seeing, and then there's really no limit. I mean, I think the limit is your comfort zone with doing computer-aided design.
For sure. All right, go to the next question. Is there any
Yes.
work that you still find the conventional way more convenient and accurate for, or which work do you think is the best to be done digitally way rather than the conventional way?
I like this question a lot because I'm a very traditional style of dentist. I'm using more digital now than ever, but that's not to say I don't use digital because it's easier. I always want to use whatever's the best. So I started, for example, doing digital printing just to do my designs for cosmetic cases digitally, and I was printing them for that purpose. And then fast forward to now, I'm doing milled restorations, printed restorations, I'm doing provisionals, and I've just found that in general, once you've mastered it, there's no comparison. Like the precision on my indirect restorations from a digital workflow, so I'll scan with Medit, and then I'll mill the restoration using my mill, it's the Ceramill DRS. I get the best margins I've ever had, and I really didn't think I had a problem with margins. I would never have said that my margins need improvement, but now I can see that that extra amount of precision and detail and predictability is worth it. My occlusal adjustment is less. My digital designs, there's no going back. I'm not ever going back to a wax up, because with a digital design, I can have the patient's face, I can have their scan, I can do the whole design, I can make changes quickly. So I think there's very little things that are better with the conventional way, but one thing that I am still doing in the conventional way to some degree is my veneers, because when it comes to the artistic ability to mimic nature, that's the type of dentistry I do, it's called biomimetic dentistry, then I don't want a monolithic restoration. You can mill something and cut it back, but the most beautiful veneers I've ever done and continue to do are feldspathic. So what happens in those cases is we design them digitally, we come up with like the wax up and the shape, but then when it comes time to doing the final production, that design is our guide to make them in an analog way by hand. And I've been lecturing a lot about this, but the combination of the artistic side of doing things the conventional way with the precision and technology of digital, it unlocks tons of possibilities. And I think over time, we'll continue to get more and more into the digital side. But for now, I think the artistic component is the part where the conventional way is superior. And you can find ways to blend that in anywhere from stain and glaze all the way up to, doing it by hand, but still having done a large majority of the case and even your final impression in a digital way.
So it seems many users still considering it, right?
Right.
So can I ask? Yeah, can I ask,
Sure.
do you think how long does it take to get used to it with the digital way?
I learn quickly because I'm really good with technology. So I think it depends on what type of person you are. But I think the advice I would give somebody who's interested in getting into it is to get it and start with what you can. Because in the early days, I didn't even try to take I didn't even try to take my final impressions with digital scan. I got it for both Invisalign and for diagnostic reasons. And that was before Medit. Then I slowly got into doing more. And once I got the Medit, I decided I'm going to try to do my impressions with this. But because I was reluctant or scared of creating problems, I did both. I would take a digital scan and a PVS impression. So I invested a little bit of time and safety to do that, but I kept seeing over and over that not only was it, well, two things. We saw there's a little difference between a regular impression and a digital scan. But the crazy thing was the digital scan was the more accurate. Like if you adjusted based on the regular impression, you lost a little bit of precision. Oftentimes I'm referring to the occlusion, but sometimes on inlays and onlays, even just the proximal walls, if you were using your stone model, you lost precision compared to if you said, okay, I'm just gonna follow the digital and stick with it and not make adjustments until I try it in. So my advice would be to get it and start simple, start a little bit, build up your confidence. It's a learning curve like anything else, but I think in a matter of a few months of committed effort, you could make the transition to doing not only your scans digital, but unlocking all the different areas that you can, or all the different utilities with digital dentistry. And one of the things that's amazing to me is that Medit gives you these tools, because without all these apps, you have a digital scan and you can send to a lab, but you're not really unlocking any major change except, getting rid of impressions. It's when you can take that digital information and actually create something, whether it's a provisional, a final restoration, a night guard, that's when the digital world really unlocks possibilities for so many different practice types in the world.
Thank you. And can you go to the next question?
Sure.
Do you think print out the designed wax and model? Do you think 3D printing is accurate enough?
Yeah, so that's a good question, because that's exactly what we're kind of talking about. I started with doing my digital designs, printing them, and then I would do my mock-up or my test run or my test drive, whatever you want to call it. I would use that model, make a putty from it, and do it in the mouth. And as time has gone on, I mean, obviously there's some variations among printers, but the scan data is accurate enough. And I'm using sprint ray printers personally. There's a lot of other great printers too, but precision is not a problem. We're getting very predictable, high quality results, and especially true when it comes to the design aspects of doing like a mock-up or even temporaries. These are all very accurate. You can print it out, try it on the model, and you'll be surprised how consistent it is. So do it all the time, and I think that there's really no reservation or hesitation to do this.
Yeah, we've got this kind of question too from
A lot.
The users, right? A lot.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, the thing is, I want to say, like I said, I experimented with doing, I would take a backup impression and check these things, but you get to a point where you lose that sort of fear, because once you see it enough, and I do think when you start, you have to calibrate, your staff, your printer, everything. So it's always good to ease into it, but I would say there's a lot of different workflows out there, and there's a lot of different people that are using these printed models for everything from the mock-up to the final design. Printing final restorations is here now. You can print restorations that can be billed as ceramic. So that is really saying that the precision is not only there in printing the models, but even in printing final restoration. So I think there's really no concern here.
Right. Can we go to, is it a last question, right?
This is the last question, yeah.
So last question. Is it possible to design the surgical guide with Medit design? Have you ever done it?
So it is possible, because with Medit design, you can do anything, and I've watched videos on this. I have not done it because we place very little implants in our office, and the specialist I work with, he designs and makes these himself and shares the design with me, or shares the implant position with me. I think it's super important to do all your implants with a fully guided approach, but I'm fortunate to have a specialist that kind of takes over that part and shares the design with me to confirm. So it saves me some time, and it gives me all the benefits of designing myself. But with that said, you can design it. At the moment, you'd be designing a surgical guide that doesn't necessarily have sleeves for the different implants, though that may be coming in the future. For now, you'd be designing a simple surgical guide that gives you the orientation and location, but without actually having the digitally planned implant there, and you can do it. It's a little bit more advanced, but I think that there is discussion of streamlining that process in the upcoming upgrades and additions to the different apps. And I would expect eventually that would be separated from Medit design into its own workflow, or part of the Splint workflow, or something like that.
All right, thank you. Oh, so here's a quick question. So have you
Sure.
done it? Have you ever designed the non-sleeve surgical guide?
Myself? No, I haven't, because I mean, I have in the past, we've printed. So there was a doctor that was in my office doing implants all the time, and he would design them. And this was prior to when we had Medit. He would print them on our printers, and I forget the software that it was at the time. But I personally have never designed a surgical guide, because I've been, like I said, fortunate where whoever was doing it was the one who would be making it. But I know that you can make the non-sleeved surgical guides with Medit Design. I've watched all the videos. I learned a lot from watching those videos about the different things you can do. For example, I used that as inspiration for when I was making a implant provisional without even having the abutment, just using some of the same features and tools to make the screw access opening and everything.
Oh, thank you, Arya.
You're welcome.
So maybe this is the last question and we're all done, right?
Yes, those are all done, yeah.
All right, I think it is time to wrap up this webinar. You can watch this webinar on our Medit online platform after we're done. And if you have any questions or feedback, please send an email to meditedu@medit.com. Again, I would like to thank you so much for being here, Dr. Matt.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, perfect. Thank you all for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next webinar. Bye.
Bye.